The silver ships of the Toran Empire descended through Earth's atmosphere with elegant precision on a clear spring morning. The world watched in shock and awe as these massive vessels hovered above major cities, their surfaces gleaming like polished mercury under the sun. For days, they simply waited, broadcasting no messages, making no hostile moves, just silently observing. On the seventh day, they sent their first communication. All screens across Earth simultaneously displayed the same message. "We come in friendship. We wish to speak." Ambassador Jae-ho Kim had been hastily appointed as Earth's representative after a tense United Nations emergency session. At 53, with salt and pepper hair and deep smile lines that belied his serious demeanor, he had decades of diplomatic experience. None of that had prepared him for meeting aliens. "This will define humanity's future," he told his small team as they prepared for the first face-to-face meeting. "We must be welcoming but cautious. We know nothing about their intentions." The meeting location was a hastily constructed neutral facility in Switzerland. Ambassador Kim waited with sweaty palms as the Toran delegation emerged from their transport vessel. The aliens walked on two legs, but their all similarity to humans ended. Tall and slender with iridescent skin that shifted colors slightly as they moved, the Torans had 4 arms and large, dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Their leader wore an ornate collar that pulsed with soft light. "I am Lord Vex," the Toran announced, its voice surprisingly melodic despite coming through a translation device. "Supreme Cultural Attaché of the Toran Empire. We have traveled far to find you." The initial meetings were tense but productive. The Torans offered technological knowledge, especially in medicine and energy production. They asked only for cultural exchange and the right to establish observation posts to study Earth's diverse ecosystems and societies. "Your planet is unique," Lord Vex explained during their third meeting. "In our travels through 17 galaxies, we have never encountered such diversity of life and culture on a single world." Most world leaders were cautiously optimistic. The technology the Torans shared had already helped cure 2 previously untreatable diseases. Their energy systems promised to end climate change within a decade. 6 months after first contact, the Toran observation posts were established on every continent. Their focus quickly became apparent. "They're particularly interested in our education systems," Dr. Minji Park noted during a research committee meeting. At 35, she was the youngest lead xenobiologist in the international team studying the Torans. Her small stature and youthful appearance often caused others to underestimate her sharp mind. "They've requested access to elementary schools in every region," she continued, pushing her glasses up her nose. "They only want to observe children between ages 6 and 12. Their interest seems oddly specific." Her supervisor, Dr. Seo, waved away her concerns. "They've explained this. They're fascinated by how humans develop reasoning skills. Their species matures differently." Dr. Park remained unconvinced. She began tracking Toran movements independently, noting patterns in their visits and requests. Meanwhile, the Toran presence expanded. Their observers became familiar sights in schools worldwide. Always polite, always watching. Children found them fascinating, especially when they demonstrated small technological marvels, floating toys, holograms that could be shaped by thought, lights that danced to music. "The children trust them completely," Dr. Park told her colleague, Hyun, after observing a Toran demonstration at a Seoul elementary school. "But I've noticed something strange. The Torans scan the children with devices they claim measure cultural aptitude, but they hide the results. They're looking for something specific." Hyun sighed. "Minji, you're being paranoid. The Oversight Committee approves all their activities." 3 months later, the first reports emerged. 3 children disappeared from a small farming village near Busan. The police investigation found nothing. No signs of struggle, no evidence, no witnesses. The children had simply vanished from their beds. A week later, 5 more children disappeared from a mountain town in northern South Korea. Then 8 from a coastal village. all locations where Toran observers had recently conducted cultural surveys. Dr. Park connected these dots quickly, but her reports to the government were ignored. The official stance remained that the Torans were valuable allies, until the night the Huang family captured something on their security camera. Their 10-year-old daughter Jun-seo had vanished, and the footage showed a beam of pale blue light entering her bedroom window. More disturbingly, it showed a small figure, unmistakably Jun-seo, floating out through the same window, suspended in that light, her face peaceful as if sleeping. The footage spread across the internet before authorities could suppress it. Parents worldwide began installing cameras. More evidence accumulated, always the same pattern, always children who had been culturally assessed by Toran observers. Dr. Park finally gained an audience with Ambassador Kim, bringing her complete research files. They're selecting specific children, she explained, showing him the pattern. Children with particular neural patterns. It's not random, it's harvest. Ambassador Kim's face grew grim as he reviewed her evidence. If you're right, we've invited predators into our homes. He stared out the window at a distant Toran ship hovering on the horizon. But why? What do they want with our children? The answer came unexpectedly. A junior Toran cultural attaché named Mev sought Dr. Park out privately. Smaller than most Torans, and with paler skin, Mev had worked closely with human scientists for months. I cannot participate in this deception any longer, Mev told her, voice trembling. Your children have something precious, neural plasticity combined with creative reasoning that is unique in the galaxy. My people are dying. Our neural networks are failing after millennia of artificial enhancement. Your children are. Compatibility matches for our systems. Dr. Park felt cold horror spread through her body. You're taking our children to use as what? Processing nodes. Living computers. The process is considered humane by our standards, Mev replied, not meeting her eyes. They retain consciousness but serve a greater purpose. That same night, rural areas across 5 continents reported the same phenomenon. Toran scout ships descending after midnight, beams of light entering homes, children vanishing. Dr. Park's evidence, combined with Mev's testimony, finally forced the United Nations to confront the truth. Ambassador Kim faced Lord Vex in an emergency session broadcast worldwide. You came as friends and took our children, Kim said, his voice steady despite his rage. This is an act of war against every human on Earth. Lord Vex's skin darkened to a deep purple. You misunderstand. We offer your offspring elevation, purpose beyond their primitive existence. The Toran Empire extends across galaxies. Your resistance is meaningless. As the Toran delegation departed, their ships changed configuration, weapon systems becoming visible on their hulls. The Empire's true purpose was now revealed, and humanity faced a threat unlike any in its history, an advanced enemy that had come not for resources or territory, but for their children. Captain Sung-Ho Lee rubbed his tired eyes as he placed another red pin into the large world map covering the wall of his office. Each pin represented a missing child. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. 87 in the last month alone, he said quietly to himself. His office in Seoul's Special Investigations Unit was small but organized. Case files were stacked neatly on his desk. Photos of smiling children, all now missing, lined one wall. He had stopped looking at their faces. It made it harder to sleep at night. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. General Jin Woo Choi entered, his uniform perfectly pressed despite the late hour. You said you had something urgent to show me, Captain, the general said. Captain Lee nodded and gestured to the map. Look at the patterns. Sir, every red pin marks a child disappearance. Blue pins show where Toran educational teams visited schools. General Choi stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as he studied the map. The pattern follows Toran educational visits, Captain Lee explained. Always 3 days after they leave an area, children start vanishing. No signs of forced entry, no evidence of struggle. They simply disappear from their beds. That's circumstantial, the general replied, though doubt showed in his eyes. We can't accuse our alien allies of kidnapping without solid proof. The diplomatic fallout would be disastrous. Captain Lee opened a folder on his desk. My wife has found something. As you know, Dr. Yoon works at the National Science Lab. I'm aware of her work, General Choi said with a nod. She's a respected scientist. She collected samples from 3 different homes where children vanished. All contained the same unusual dust-like substance. Captain Lee handed the general several photographs of microscopic particles that glowed faintly blue. This residue contains particles not found on Earth. The atomic structure doesn't match any known element. General Choi frowned. What are you suggesting? It's their transport technology. My wife believes these are trace elements left behind when they take the children. The general placed the photos back on the desk, his face troubled. This still isn't enough. We need something conclusive before we can act. Sir, with respect, how many more children need to vanish before we do something? Captain, I understand your frustration. I have grandchildren too. But we must follow proper procedures. The Torans have brought us medical advances, clean energy. Accusing them without absolute proof could end all that. Keep investigating, but quietly. After the general left, Captain Lee called his wife. They're still not listening, he told her. Then we need better evidence, Dr. Yoon replied simply. For the next week, Dr. Yoon secretly installed specialized detection equipment in homes near recent Toran educational visits. The devices were designed to record unusual energy signatures or radiation. Most families welcomed the installations once they understood the purpose. Meanwhile, the government continued to suppress findings about the disappearances. Official reports blamed human trafficking networks or runaway cases. Parents who mentioned the Torans were visited by security officials who reminded them of the importance of maintaining positive alien relations. But the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. The Kwan family lived in a modest apartment in Busan. Their daughter, Mina, age 8, had been evaluated by Toran educational observers who noted her exceptional cognitive patterns. 3 days after the evaluation, she vanished from her bedroom. Unlike most families, the Kwans had installed their own security cameras after hearing rumors about the disappearances. The footage they captured showed a beam of pale blue light entering through Mina's window at 2:17 a.m. Moments later, the small figure of their daughter floated out through the same window, suspended in the light, her eyes closed as if in deep sleep. The Kwans bypassed official channels and posted the footage directly online with a tearful plea for help. This is our daughter, Mina. Something took her. The authorities won't help us. Please share this so everyone knows what's happening to our children. The video spread faster than government censors could remove it. Within hours, millions had viewed it. Other families began coming forward with similar stories and footage. Captain Lee received an urgent call from Dr. Yoon at 3 a.m. Turn on your computer, she said, her voice tense with excitement. One of my detection units just caught something big. The footage showed the home of the Park family, whose twin sons had been flagged by Toran observers the previous week. The detection equipment captured what normal cameras couldn't. A Toran scout ship hovering silently above the house, its hull almost transparent except for a faint outline visible only through Dr. Yoon's specialized filters. The ship emitted the same blue beam seen in the Kwan video. Minutes later, 2 small forms rose through the beam into the waiting vessel. This is it, Captain Lee whispered. The proof we need. But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. Earth's Orbital Defense Network, a system of satellites originally designed to track space debris, had been quietly reprogrammed by a small group of military engineers sympathetic to Captain Lee's investigation. The satellites captured high-resolution images of Toran scout ships systematically moving across rural areas at night. In one clear sequence, children could be seen suspended in blue light, rising into the ships under cover of darkness. When these images reached Captain Lee, He immediately sent copies to every major news outlet and government office worldwide. There could be no more denial. He called General Choi directly. "Have you seen the satellite footage, sir?" The general's voice was grim. "Yes. Emergency meetings are happening now at the highest levels. This changes everything." "What do we do now?" Captain Lee asked. Now we prepare for war, Captain, because that's what this is." Within hours, the United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session. Ambassador Kim presented the evidence while Toran representatives watched stone-faced. "We have proof that your people are abducting our children," Ambassador Kim stated. "This is an act of war against all humanity." The lead Toran diplomat rose. "These children were selected for elevation. Their neural patterns make them suitable for integration with our systems. This is an honor, not a crime." "An honor?" Ambassador Kim's voice shook with rage. "You take them without permission, against their will, from their families who love them. Your emotional attachment to offspring is noted but irrelevant," the Toran replied coldly. "The needs of the empire supersede your primitive family bonds." As the diplomatic relations collapsed, Captain Lee found himself suddenly promoted to head a new global task force dedicated to tracking abducted children. "We know they're taking them somewhere," he told his international team during their first briefing. "And we're going to find them and bring them home." Dr. Yoon joined the task force as lead scientific advisor. Her analysis of the transport technology provided the first real clue. "The particles left behind are quantum entangled with their source," she explained. "In theory, we could use them to trace back to wherever they're taking the children." As governments worldwide mobilized for a conflict unlike any in human history, families united in grief and determination. A global network formed, sharing information about missing children and possible Toran activities. The Kwan family became symbols of the resistance after their video went viral. Mrs. Kwan addressed a crowd of thousands in Seoul. "They thought we would stay silent," she said, her voice strong despite her tears. "They thought we would accept the loss of our children. They do not understand what it means to be human. We will never stop fighting until every child comes home." President Ta Wu-han stood before the emergency United Nations session, his face grim but determined. The giant screens behind him showed images of missing children from around the world. The usual political divisions that marked these meetings were noticeably absent. Every representative sat in tense silence. "They took our children," President Han said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Thousands of them. From their beds, from their homes. While we welcome these aliens as friends, they stole our most precious treasure." He paused, looking directly at the cameras broadcasting his speech globally. "This ends today." The response from the assembly was immediate, a standing ovation that lasted nearly 5 minutes. Nations that had been at odds for decades found common ground in their shared outrage and grief. After the session, in a secure room beneath the UN building, the first meeting of what would become the Earth Defense Coalition took place. Military leaders from 27 countries sat around a large table, traditional uniforms a colorful mix that symbolized their unprecedented cooperation. Commander Junho Song led the meeting, a decorated military veteran whose own 10-year-old son had been taken. He had been unanimously chosen to head humanity's response. His personal loss gave him a drive that impressed even the most hardened generals. "The Torans believe us primitive and divided," he told the assembled leaders, his voice steady despite his pain. "They fail to understand what humans will do for their children. Our differences mean nothing now. We have one mission: bring our children home and make the Toran Empire regret the day they targeted Earth." Within days, global military resources were pooled. Space agencies shared classified technology. Private companies opened their research facilities for defense work. Construction of hybrid human Toran vessels began using parts salvaged from damaged alien scouts that had been shot down or crashed. For the first time in human history, Borders became meaningless as scientists, soldiers, and resources moved freely to wherever they were most needed. Dr. Yoon's breakthrough came 3 weeks after the UN declaration. Working with a team of quantum physicists and engineers, she had been studying the blue particle residue left at abduction sites. The particles remain quantum entangled with their source, she explained to Commander Song, pointing to complex equations on the lab's main screen. We can use this connection like a thread leading back to where they took the children. Can we build ships that can follow this thread? Commander Song asked. Dr. Yoon nodded. We already have. The prototype is ready for testing. The first human-built ship capable of following the Toran quantum trails was named Homecoming 1. It looked nothing like traditional human spacecraft. Its hull curved organically, incorporating salvaged Toran technology with human engineering. A crew of 12 volunteers, all parents of missing children, would pilot it. Captain Lee, now serving as Commander Song's chief intelligence officer, reviewed the mission briefing with the crew. Our scans suggest a Toran outpost on Mars, he explained. It appears to be a collection point before they transport children out of our solar system. Your mission is to confirm this, and, if possible, recover any children held there. The launch was watched by billions worldwide. Schools closed for the event. In town squares and city centers, people gathered around large screens to witness humanity's first step toward rescuing their children. Homecoming 1's journey to Mars took just 3 days, a testament to how quickly humans had adapted Toran propulsion technology. As they approached the red planet, the crew detected the quantum signature growing stronger. We're picking up life signs consistent with human children, the ship's doctor reported. Approximately 40 of them. The Toran outpost was built into the side of a Martian crater, partially underground. Security appeared minimal. The aliens had not expected humans to track them or mount a rescue so quickly. The rescue team, led by Major Sun Mekang, breached the facility using tactics specifically developed for this mission. They encountered only 8 Toran guards, who were quickly neutralized with weapons designed to disrupt Toran neural systems without causing permanent harm. We need them alive for questioning, Major Kang reminded her team as they secured the facility. What they found inside shocked even the most prepared among them. 43 human children, ages 6 to 12, lay in translucent pods connected to a central machine. Each child appeared to be sleeping peacefully, but thin filaments connected to their temples pulsed with light that flowed toward the central processor. They're using them, whispered Dr. Min, the team's medical officer, as he scanned the equipment. The children's brains are active. They're being used as processing nodes for the Toran systems. The team worked quickly to disconnect the children, following protocols developed by Dr. Yoon. As each child was freed, they were carefully examined. Physically, they appeared unharmed, but none would wake up immediately. Their minds need time to recover, Dr. Min explained. The connection was deep. As the team prepared to leave with the rescued children, Major Kang discovered a database in the facility's control center. She downloaded everything before planting charges to destroy the outpost after their departure. The journey back to Earth was tense. The children remained in medically induced comas to protect their recovering minds. The Toran prisoners were kept in secure containment, refusing to answer questions. Homecoming 1's return was met with both celebration and rage as the truth about what the Torans had been doing spread worldwide. The children were transferred to a specialized medical facility where doctors and psychologists worked to help them recover. 3 days later, one child finally woke up. 9-year-old Jamin Park opened his eyes in a hospital room where his parents had maintained a constant vigil. "Mom, Dad?" he whispered, his voice weak from disuse. The reunion was emotional but brief. Doctors needed to examine Jamin, whose brain showed unusual activity patterns. When Commander Song visited later that day, the boy had something important to tell him. "They're using us to think," Jamin said, his voice stronger but his eyes haunted. "Their machines need us. They can't think new thoughts without us." Dr. Yoon, who had joined the debriefing, asked gently, "Can you explain what you mean, Jamin?" The boy frowned, struggling to find the right words. "They're very old. Their minds got stuck. They only think the same thoughts over and over. But human kids, our brains still grow and make new connections. They put us in machines to make their computers think new thoughts." Over the next week, as more children awoke, a clearer picture emerged. The Toran Empire, despite its technological advancement, had reached an evolutionary dead end. Their neural development had stagnated millennia ago, and their civilization had become increasingly dependent on artificial systems to progress. Human children, with their unique neural plasticity and creativity, provided something the Torans desperately needed: the ability to think in new ways, to innovate, to imagine possibilities beyond established patterns. The data Major Kang had recovered revealed something even more disturbing. Mars was just a temporary processing station. Most abducted children were being transported to the heart of the Toran Empire, dozens of light years away, to serve as permanent neural nodes in the vast network that maintained their civilization. Commander Song called an emergency meeting of the Earth Defense Coalition leadership. "We now understand what they want," he told them, his voice hard with determination, "and why they won't stop taking our children. This isn't just about rescuing those already taken. It's about protecting all human children, now and forever." He pointed to a star map showing the location of the Toran Empire's core worlds. "The Mars mission proved we can fight them. Now we plan our counterattack." As the meeting concluded, news arrived that the first rescued child, whose parents were both military personnel, had made a specific request. Jae-min Park, son of a Navy engineer and an Air Force pilot, wanted to speak to the coalition leaders. Despite his young age, he was brought before them. Still thin and pale from his ordeal, he stood straight and spoke clearly. "While I was connected to their system, I learned things," he said. "I know where the other children are. I know how their ships work. I know their weaknesses." He looked directly at Commander Song. "And I want to help you save my friends." Admiral Jung-ho Ba stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, Earth's first true warship built with reverse-engineered Toran technology. Through the main viewport, he watched as his fleet assembled in Earth orbit, 50 vessels of varying sizes, all constructed in the 6 months since humanity learned the truth about the alien abductions. The ships looked strange, a mixture of human and Toran design. Some were repurposed commercial vessels with alien weapons grafted to their hulls. Others were built from scratch, using the quantum entanglement technology Dr. Yoon had perfected. What they lacked in elegance, they made up for in purpose. "Fleet status report," Admiral Bai ordered, his voice calm despite the weight of responsibility he carried. "All vessels report ready, Admiral," his executive officer replied. "Rescue teams are on standby. Quantum tracking systems are locked onto the signatures of the abducted children." Admiral Bai nodded and pressed the fleet-wide communication button. His face appeared on screens throughout all 50 ships. "This is Admiral Ba. Today we take the fight to the enemy. The Torans believed us incapable of following them, of fighting back. They expected submission," he told his pilots and crews, his eyes hard with determination. "Show them how humans fight for their young. Each of you has sworn to bring our children home, and today we begin fulfilling that promise." The plan was ambitious but simple. Intelligence gathered from rescued children and captured Toran technology had revealed the locations of processing facilities throughout the solar system, places where human children were being kept before transfer to the Empire's core worlds. The fleet would split into 5 battle groups, striking simultaneously at Toran outposts on the Moon, Mars, Europa, Titan, and the asteroid belt. The element of surprise was their greatest advantage. "All ships, initiate quantum jump on my mark," Admiral Bai ordered. 3, 2, 1, mark. The fleet vanished from Earth orbit in flashes of blue light, each battle group emerging near their targets moments later. Lieutenant Min Ho-jin commanded the rescue team assigned to the Europa facility. At 32, He had been a Special Forces operator before the invasion. Now, as his dropship broke through the thin atmosphere of Jupiter's moon, he checked his team's specialized equipment one final time. "Remember, our priority is the children," he reminded the 12 operators under his command. "Secondary objective is data retrieval. Engage Toran personnel only if necessary." Their ship landed 2 kilometers from the facility, which was built beneath Europa's icy surface. Using Toran-derived scanning technology, they located an access point and cut through with plasma tools. The facility was larger than they had expected. Softly glowing blue corridors stretched in multiple directions, all leading to a central hub. The team encountered minimal resistance, just a few Toran technicians who surrendered immediately upon seeing the humans' weapons. In the central chamber, Lieutenant Jin's team found what they were looking for, and what they had been dreading. Hundreds of children floated in transparent stasis pods, their small bodies suspended in clear fluid. Thin filaments connected to their temples pulsed with light that flowed into massive machines at the center of the room. "Begin extraction procedures," Lieutenant Jin ordered, fighting to keep his voice steady. The sight of so many children, motionless, and being used as living components, threatened to overwhelm his professional detachment. Engineer Su-Bin Kang analyzed the control systems while the rest of the team prepared the children for transport. "The integration is even more advanced than we thought," Engineer Kang reported, her face grim as she studied the displays. "They're using them as processing nodes in a distributed neural network. Human children have neural plasticity the Torans lack. Each child is essentially a creative problem-solving module in their system. Can we disconnect them safely?" Lieutenant Jin asked. Engineer Kang nodded. "Yes, but it must be done carefully. Their minds have been linked to the system for months. Abrupt disconnection could cause trauma." The team worked methodically, following protocols developed after the Mars rescue. Each child was carefully disconnected, stabilized, and transferred to specialized medical pods for the journey home. As they worked, a data transmission from Admiral Bai reached them. "All battle groups report successful breaches. Hundreds of children recovered. Minimal casualties on our side. The Torans were unprepared for our attack." Across the solar system, the pattern repeated. Human forces struck Toran facilities with precision and determination. The aliens who had believed humans technologically incapable of mounting such coordinated attacks were overwhelmed. On Titan, Commander Song's battle group discovered not just a processing facility, but a Toran command center coordinating activities throughout Saturn's moons. The information they captured provided invaluable intelligence about the Empire's structure and vulnerabilities. "They've never faced anything like us," Commander Song reported to Admiral Bai after securing the facility. "Their records show they've conquered 17 species across 3 galaxies, but none ever fought back effectively after the initial invasion phase." Meanwhile, on the asteroid base designated KX-7, Captain Lee's team encountered the first significant Toran resistance. A garrison of elite Toran guards fought to protect what turned out to be the most important facility in the solar system, a quantum gate capable of instantly transporting ships to the edge of the Toran Empire. The battle lasted hours, but human determination prevailed. Captain Lee lost 7 of his team but secured both the gate and the children being processed there. "The gate is intact," he reported to Admiral Ba. "Engineer Min believes we can use it to reach their core worlds." This news changed everything. What had been planned as a rescue operation within the solar system could now become a direct assault on the Empire itself. 3 days after the initial attacks, the Earth fleet regrouped at the captured KX-7 base. The rescued children, over 800 in total, had been sent back to Earth for medical care and reunification with their families when possible. Admiral Bai called a council of his commanders to discuss their next move. "The Torans are in disarray," he told them. "Our attacks caught them completely off guard. For the first time in millennia, they're experiencing fear, but we know thousands more children have already been transported through this gate to their core worlds." Lieutenant Jin, newly promoted after the Europa mission, spoke up. Some of the recovered children have provided critical intelligence. The Torans maintain a hierarchical network. Their main processing center, where they're keeping most of our children, is on their throne world, Tora Prime. Admiral Bai studied the star maps captured from the Toran databases. Can we reach it through this gate? Engineer Kang nodded. Yes, but it's heavily defended. We'd need to fight through multiple systems to reach it. Then that's what we'll do, Admiral Ba said simply. We'll send word to Earth to build more ships using what we've learned. In the meantime, we'll strike at targets of opportunity, any facility where human children are being held. Over the next 3 months, the Earth fleet pushed deeper into Toran territory. Each rescued child provided more intelligence. Each captured facility yielded more technology to adapt. The human ships, initially crude hybrids, evolved rapidly as engineers incorporated new discoveries. The Empire had never faced an enemy like humanity, one willing to sacrifice everything, innovate constantly, and fight with unrelenting determination. Toran military doctrine, unchanged for thousands of years, proved inadequate against human unpredictability. On a small moon orbiting a gas giant in the Cygnus sector, Admiral Ba watched as his troops liberated another 300 children from a processing center. These children had been taken in the first wave of abductions nearly a year earlier. Many showed signs of prolonged neural connection, vacant stares, muscle atrophy, difficulty speaking, but their minds remained intact. We'll get them home, he promised a young girl who looked up at him with haunted eyes. And we'll make sure this never happens to another child. As Earth forces pushed deeper into Toran territory, discovering and liberating more children with each advance, the Empire's leadership faced a growing nightmare. Humans armed with righteous fury, increasingly advanced technology, and a complete unwillingness to negotiate or compromise. For the first time in its long history, the Toran Empire contemplated the possibility of defeat. The final battle took place over the Toran homeworld. 1 year after the first children disappeared, Earth's fleet had grown from 50 hastily converted ships to over 300 purpose-built warships. Many now carried weapons and shields more advanced than anything the Torans themselves used. Admiral Ba stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching as his ships emerged from quantum jumps around Tora Prime. The planet below was beautiful, covered in gleaming cities that sparkled like jewels against its purple oceans and golden landmasses. All battle groups report ready, Admiral, his executive officer announced. The Toran Defense Fleet is moving to intercept. Open a channel to their command, Admiral Bai ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a Toran with deep blue skin and an elaborate headdress that marked it as a high-ranking official. This is Admiral Bai of Earth, he said simply. We have come for our children. Surrender them immediately, or we will take them by force. The Toran official's skin rippled with color, a sign of agitation. The Emperor wishes to discuss terms. He offers to return some of your offspring in exchange for peace. Some is not acceptable, Admiral Bai replied. All of them, every single one. As he spoke, the first wave of Toran defense ships launched from the planet. The battle began moments later, energy weapons flashing across space as Earth ships executed maneuvers the Torans had never seen before. Commander Song led the ground assault team. Their mission was the most critical: enter the Imperial Palace and locate the central processing hub where intelligence suggested most of the remaining human children were being held. Team Alpha in position, he reported as his transport landed near one of the palace's lower entrances. Beginning infiltration now. The palace guards fought fiercely, but they were overwhelmed by the humans' determination and the surprising assistance that came from unexpected allies. Throughout the battle, ships from 3 other species joined the Earth fleet, races that had also lost children to the Toran Empire over the centuries. We stand with Earth, their commanders declared over open channels. The cycle of theft must end. As Commander Song's team pushed toward the central hub, Director Jun Seo-min led a diplomatic group directly to the Emperor's Grand Hall. Unlike the military teams, they were escorted by Toran officials who had seen the writing on the wall. Their empire was falling. Emperor Zul awaited them on a floating throne of metallic blue material. He was larger than most Torans, his skin a deep purple that shimmered with gold patterns. 4 attendants stood nearby, each connected to small devices that hummed softly. "You come into my home with weapons," the Emperor said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "After we offered your species advancement." Director Min stepped forward. He had once been a university professor before the crisis. Now he represented all of humanity in this crucial moment. "You violated our most sacred trust," Director Min said, his voice steady despite his anger. "You stole our children to power your consciousness engines. You took them in the night from their beds, from parents who loved them." The Emperor's skin darkened slightly. "We needed them. You cannot understand the necessity." "Explain it to us." Director Min interrupted. "We deserve to know why." The Emperor was silent for a moment, then gestured to one of his attendants, who activated a holographic display in the center of the hall. It showed the neural structure of a Toran brain alongside a human child's. 10,000 years ago, we reached perfection," Emperor Zul explained. "Our technology eliminated disease, ended aging, removed inefficiency from our thought processes. But we didn't realize what we had lost until it was too late." The hologram shifted, showing how the Toran neural pathways had become fixed, unchanging. "We reached an evolutionary dead end. Unable to evolve further, our civilization began to stagnate. We searched the galaxy for species whose developing minds could supplement our failing neural networks. Your children have something we lost: the ability to form new neural connections, to think in ways we cannot. So you turned them into living computer components," Commander Song said, entering the hall with his team. Behind them came Lieutenant Jin, leading the first group of rescued children from the central hub. "We offered you partnership," the Emperor protested, his 4 arms gesturing in agitation. "Your species would have been elevated, given immortality. Purpose." "As slaves," Commander Song replied, his hand resting protectively on the shoulder of a small boy who stared at the Emperor with fearless eyes. "As living processors. That is not elevation. That is theft of the worst kind." Emperor Zul looked at the human children being led into the hall, some walking on their own, others carried by soldiers. All had the same hollow-eyed look of those who had been connected to the Toran systems for too long. For the first time in thousands of years, the Emperor appeared to feel something like remorse. "What do you want from us?" he asked quietly. Director Min presented a datapad. "The terms of surrender are non-negotiable. All human children will be returned immediately. Your empire will be dismantled. Each world given self-governance. A new galactic council will be formed, with Earth as a founding member, to ensure no species ever again harvests another's young." The Emperor studied the terms. "And if I refuse?" Admiral Baz's voice came through the communication system. "Then we finish this today. Our fleet has disabled your defenses. Your military leaders have mostly surrendered. Make the right choice, Emperor." 3 days later, the first transport ships began the journey back to Earth, carrying children who had been missing for over a year. Medical teams worked around the clock to help them recover from their time as neural components. Some children readjusted quickly, their minds resilient enough to heal from the experience. Others would need more time and care, but all would return home. On the observation deck of the Vengeance, Admiral Baz stood with Commander Song and Director Min, watching as the last human ships prepared to leave Toran space. "We should destroy their technology," Commander Song suggested. "Ensure they can never do this again." Director Min shook his head. "No. Their civilization is ancient and contains knowledge that could benefit many species. We'll monitor them, help them find ethical ways to advance without exploiting others." "They underestimated us," Admiral Baz said softly, looking at the stars. They saw a primitive species, divided by borders and old conflicts. They thought we would submit when they took our children. They didn't understand what it means to be human, Commander Song agreed. That we would cross galaxies to save our own. As the Earth fleet began its journey home, Admiral Bai recorded a final message, one that would be broadcast to every corner of known space. To all who may hear this, we are humanity of Earth. We came from a world you thought primitive. We turned your technology against you in months. We crossed vast distances to bring our children home. Remember this, Earth's children are under our protection. Always. On Earth, families gathered in homes, schools, and public squares to welcome the returning children. There were tears of joy and sorrow, joy at reunions, sorrow for the innocents lost. But most of all, there was determination that such things would never happen again. Jamin Park, one of the first children rescued and now a junior advisor to the Earth Defense Force, despite his young age, stood with his parents as the first transport landed in Seoul. Will they come back? He asked Dr. Yoon, who had become something of a mentor to him. She shook her head. No, I don't think they'll risk facing human anger again. Good, the boy said, watching as children began to emerge from the ship, searching the crowd for familiar faces. Because next time, we'll be ready.